Hi everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today, I'll be sharing with you a topic that I, along with many considering grad school, have considered before. Should I take the GRE or the GMAT? I'll be explaining the difference between the two exams and which one is a better option for your grad school endeavors. Before getting started, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to help out the channel. The first thing that should initially be on your mind is understanding why you want to go to grad school. Especially during a pandemic, finding a job straight out of college might be tough, so many turn toward the security provided by pursuing their education. Education is important, but knowing where it wants to take you as opposed to just going through the motions because it's a guaranteed way to provide some sort of outcome is wrong. Having the right goal and purpose behind your education will improve your success. The main two reasons many consider going to grad school are because they're wanting to develop their foundation on a major or a topic they covered in undergrad because they found it interesting, or because of the money. If it's solely because of the money, I'd really consider the time and money investment prior to going to grad school, as well as checking out other videos where I share whether or not grad school is worth it. I'll be sure to link those videos in my bio below, so be sure to check those ones out after this video. Now, after deciding that you do want to go to grad school, comes the time to decide which exam you'll be taking. Med school has their applicants take the MCAT, and law schools have their applicants take the LSAT. And then there's the GRE and the GMAT. So to get started, the GMAT stands for the Graduate Management Admission Test and is required for students interested in applying to business school or to pursue their MBA. The GRE, on the other hand, stands for the Graduate Reasoning Exam and is more broadly used for students interested in getting their master's. You can take the GRE if you're interested in getting your master's in engineering degree, to getting a master's in economics, or even going to PA school, and even certain law schools are accepting it nowadays. The key differentiator between these two exams is that the GRE exam is broader and can be used for many graduate programs. Even if you're adamant about going to business school, stick around till the end of this video because you might realize that taking the GRE might be more beneficial than the GMAT exam. Going into the structure of both exams, they're roughly 3.5 hours long and are valid for 5 years after taking that exam. The GRE has 2 analytical writing sections, each for 30 minutes, 2 verbal reasoning sections, and 2 quantitative reasoning sections. In the mix, you'll also encounter an experimental section, which is not graded and can be either a mathematical or English section without you knowing. So don't guess and always do your best. The GMAT, on the other hand, has 1 30-minute analytical writing section, a 30-minute integrated reasoning section, a 62-minute quantitative section, and a 65-minute verbal section. Now, how these exams are scored also varies. The GRE is graded based on its 2 sections from a 130 to a 170, so a perfect score on the GRE would be a 340, and the lowest possible score is a 260. You won't get a 260. The GMAT, on the other hand, is scored from a 200 to an 800 with 10-point increments. But again, you won't get a 200. Going more into the structure of each exam, a similarity and difference they both share is that both exams are adaptive. This means that as the exam progresses, the exam will either get easier or harder depending on how well you did on the previous section or questions. If you did well, the exam will become harder to become more challenging, and if you didn't do well, the exam will get a little easier. Keep in mind, however, that intentionally bombing the first section or questions to get an easier exam will hurt your score because of how the questions are being graded. Harder questions get graded differently than easier questions, and harder questions are worth more points. So a main takeaway is to remember to always do your best and to get the best score possible. Now, a difference in their adaptive structure is that for the GRE, your exam will get harder or easier per section, meaning that if you did generally well on the quantitative math section, the next math section will get harder. There is no correlation, however, though, between different sections of the exam, so don't think that because you did well in math, the reading section will also now become more challenging. That only depends on how well you did on the previous reading section. Whereas for the GMAT, each question for each section will incrementally become easier or harder depending on your previous response. So as you're taking the exam and get caught up on a question, this is where there's a differentiation. On the GRE, you can mark that question and come back to it, whereas that's not an option when you're taking the GMAT, since the exam changes per question. So keep in mind, especially as we move forward, that the GRE is section adaptive, whereas the GMAT is question adaptive. Going into their topics of concentration, the GRE really tests your vocabulary and will use words that you've probably never used or even seen before. So my best advice is to study off a set of flashcards several days or several weeks before your exam depending on how much time you've allotted for that preparation. I use the Princeton Review set of 500 vocabulary terms, which I bought off Amazon, and it was truly helpful. I have no affiliation with the Princeton Review, but I'm just sharing something that helped me out while I was studying for the GRE, and I really hope it does the same for you. If you're not a big fan of flashcards, you're more than welcome to watch Schitt's Creek and hear Moira Rose talk, because that's basically a GRE lesson at hand. Aside from vocab, you will have reading comprehension as well as grammar questions, so don't worry if you're thinking that this is just going to be a round 2 of SAT vocab again. The GMAT English section tends to focus more on grammar structure and sentence configuration, so there are some differences in comparison to the GRE. You might need to know several grammar rules, but that's definitely going to be easier than knowing several vocab words. All in all, the GMAT English section will be easier if you do have a stronger background in English. So if you're thinking about business school, the GMAT might be a better option if you're wanting to do well on this section. Diving into the math sections of both exams, both the GRE and GMAT are relatively similar in the concepts that they're testing. Keep in mind, however, the purpose for each exam though. The GMAT is meant for business schools, so math is crucial, meaning that the concepts being tested might be asked in a more challenging manner, whereas there are students taking the GRE for a graduate degree that isn't math heavy at all. What's also important to point out is that the GRE allows students to use a calculator provided by the testing center, whereas the GMAT does not. But again, remember the types of questions being asked will have more similarity, so if you struggle with math, then the GRE might be a better option. So as a recap, both tests have their similarities and differences between one another, and it's a matter of knowing where your strengths lie. Regardless of whether you're 100% adamant about going to business school, you'll have both exams available to you. But again, I'd strongly encourage visiting that school's program and seeing if they have preferences in the exam they'd like candidates to take. Also, remember that grad school requires a lot of thought and shouldn't be something you just jump into until you've done your due diligence and know it is the right step in the right direction for you professionally. With that being said, if you found this video helpful, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, as well as check out the other videos on my channel for guidance. If you'd like more one-on-one mentorship, feel free to visit my website, ryanrafi.com, and use the promo codes that I've shared in my bio below. As always, thanks. Until next time.